Well, good morning, and I hope that tune sort of got you going this morning. But anyway, welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks morning show. And I'm James Slim Overton, and I'm here with co-host Thomas the Colonel Chapman. And we're waiting on Leah. She'll probably tune in here a little later. And before we get started, I want you to make sure if you're watching live on YouTube and Facebook, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share and share if you're watching live, and of course leave your comments here, and we'll try to address them, as you comment, or as if you have questions for our guests. And we have a special guest with us this morning. He's really not a stranger to our show. He's been on our show before, and his name is Glen Francis. Good morning, Glen.
Good morning. Good morning to you both. And
Yeah.
let me say this before we get started, Slim. I just want to
Go ahead.
compliment and commend you guys for your show. It is a great show. It's a wonderful show, and I'm excited to have this opportunity to be up here with
Yeah,
you.
we're excited to have you here, man, especially with the subject we're going to talk about today. And well, Glenn, and many of you know him, and some of you don't know him. He graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School here in the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. And he's a Spartan from Norfolk State University, lives in Chesapeake right now, longtime entrepreneur and businessman here in the city of Portsmouth. We served together on the planning commission in the city of Portsmouth, and he's served on other boards and has been campaign managers for many uh, people who have been elected to office. So it's been very involved in the city since a young age, Glenn, right? How old were you when you got
Absolutely.
started?
23 or 24. And
Yeah, I
I'm
remember you.
62.
Yeah, when when I met you, you were a young puppy.
Yeah,
And I remember, with the Black Pages book you had, that was very instrumental during that time. And I know I
absolutely.
advertised on it when I was in real estate, and
Hmm.
it just connected. The black community, and I got a lot of calls from that because a lot of people in our communities will look to support black businesses, and that was like the phone book of black businesses, and that was a great publication for years in the city of Portsmouth. Appreciate you for doing that.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
agree with you wholeheartedly. There's no question that it provided information of locations and the types of professionals that we had in the African American community here in Hampton Roads.
And good morning, Leah.
Good morning. How
Okay,
are you?
you doing one of those colonel things. At first, I just saw your head sitting
Looked
on.
like I was looked like I was a bobblehead, right?
Yeah, I think Colonel was trying to, attract people that might make bobbleheads and might say, "Hey, here's a good example."
Yes.
But anyway, good morning to you, Leah, and
Good
of
morning,
course we have our
everyone.
guest here, Mr. Gillian Francis here, and we're going to talk about caregivers, and so all of us have been in that position. I know I have, and Leah and Colonel. And one thing we'll talk about as when people hear about caregivers, they think about mostly the elderly, but a lot of people have to caregive for much younger adults or younger children. They have to dedicate their lives to doing that, and it can be a very stressful, but a labor of love. I'll put it that way. But Glenn, let's start with you. As far as you've been kind of doing this for caregiving for, I guess, about 20
20 years.
years. And as I
20,
said,
20 years.
most people think about the elderly, but you've had, very personal experience with your wife for that long. And like I mentioned earlier, you before that or during that time as well, you're very active in the city, but you had to sort of pull back on some of the activities, you know, as time. So give us a little caption of your experience there, or how that got started.
Well, my wife was 43 years old when she had a cerebral bleed. My son was 5 years old. And matter of fact, he was home at the house with her, and I was en route home from work that day. And my wife's head started hurting. She started having a tremendous headache, and she called me and said, "Glenn, my head is hurting, and so it feels like something's going on." Well, I said, and then I'm on my way home, but if you can't make it till I get there, call paramedic. My son was 5 and he called paramedics, and she had never had any issues or problems with headaches of any consistency. Everybody has a headache every now and then, but she had never experienced any major headaches over a long period of time. And so she had cerebral bleed on that day. And my son was 5 and he called paramedics for her and to help save her life.
Wow.
And from that
And
point on, there's been, multiple, she's had brain surgery. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and she was very active too before that. Was she worked for the city? I think behavioral health care, or was it
Oh,
social services?
absolutely. That is correct. She was a training specialist for behavioral health care.
Hmm.
And we were
So you know,
about to embark on uh at that moment she was we were embarking on her starting a group home for teenage pregnant moms. We had got the
right?
old Fagan house. We had
Hmm.
gotten the old
Yeah.
Fagan house, and we was preparing our state papers to start that home. So we were excited. We had some exciting projects on the table.
So one thing about those
And so all of that had to
cerebral. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing
Now I was
about
just
those.
gonna say,
Go
I'm
ahead. I'll
listening to
yield to
you.
you, brother.
No, I'm listening to you. I'm
I
listening.
was going to say one thing about those bleeds. It's not something hereditary; it can happen to anybody. So, explain what it does to you once you. I
Exactly.
mean, it's sort of what kind of effects does it have on your body? Especially after you catch it
It
and
could have
and
more. It could have multiple effects. Now, how? Yeah, it could have multiple effects. Several of the things that it has affected my wife is it has caused her to have seizures because anytime they start operating on your brain, uh, uh, the manipulation of your brain, it brings on seizures. So now my wife suffers from seizures and she suffers from chronic migraine headaches constantly. She's
wow,
constantly in pain. My wife hasn't worked in 20 years. She hasn't driven a car in 20 years. I do all of the cooking and most of the cleaning. And so those are some of the issues that we're facing.
wow, yeah. Because I was going to ask you what kind of care do you have to do, and you kind of covered that in a nutshell. So, and I'm sure it's a lot more detailed than that. And then you talked about your son being 5 at the time, and I think when we talked. When we saw each other a few days ago, we talked. He's out of college now and a grown man, but he's never really seen his mother healthy.
No, he has not. And as a child, the trauma with a child is, watching his mother go through seizures and which is not a very attractive process to witness. You go to school as a young man at 10, 11, or even middle school and high school, and you don't know if you're going to come home and you're going to see your mother healthy again. So those are the things that he had to endure as he went through school and watching his mother again go through those very, very difficult medical experiences. And then you don't know if when you come home from school, your mother's going to be home to greet you or not. So that was a tough process as well.
Wow. Okay, I'll yield to my co-host now.
Well,
Colonel.
Glenn, okay, go ahead. Leah, ladies
Wait,
first.
go ahead, Colonel. No, go ahead.
No, Glenn, thanks for coming on and talking about this is a big issue, especially amongst the Black population. One of the major causes of strokes, or cerebral accidents, or is the untreated or uncontrolled hypertension or high blood pressure, and that is one of the big factors for us people of color.
Mm-hmm.
We A lot of times, we don't have a primary physician, or we get our medical care in the emergency room, and we're not really on any blood pressure medicines to keep our blood pressures down, and we don't see the insidious signs of hypertension that is actually destroying our brain. Meaning, as our blood pressures go up, it also affects the heart. That the heart has to work harder to pump the blood throughout the body, which also a lot of times, we have left-sided ventricular hypertrophy, that it just, that side of the wall just gets bigger and bigger until sooner or later we have a heart attack. Also, hypertension is big, what we call the kidney killer, and that's why we see so many of us on dialysis in our later years, and which leads to a host of problems. And then the other thing that we're talking about for today is the having a stroke, which is basically, to break it down, is we spring a leak inside one of the blood vessels in the brain. And that is one of the causes of having those big headaches that your wife was probably having, because she really sprung a leak. And if it's not treated right away and by a competent neurosurgeon, and then it has really some bad effects on the, not just on the patient, but also effects on the family unit. Because as you've noticed or witnessed over the years, or participate over years, that sickness of your wife affects your son, you, and everything else you wanted to do from that day forward for the rest of history, as long as she's here.
Absolutely. That is
Yes.
so true.
Yes.
It really takes a village to be caretakers for someone that is going through that kind of health crisis. It takes a village. It takes, like you say, well as the spouse, the children, grandparents, cousins, uncles, aunts. It really takes a village to be supportive for someone that is going through for a long period of time of that type of healthcare needs.
Yes.
And
So,
Glenn, go ahead, Colonel.
This problem is so prevalent in society across the country, and actually around the world. Healthcare providers in the hospitals have different protocols, what we call stroke. When a patient comes in, we have stroke protocols that we go through. And first, you get a CAT scan to identify what kind of stroke it has. Is it a leak per se, or is it embolus that causes the stroke? Meaning, you may have had a blood clot in the leg that is broke off and gone through the system and gone up to the head and inside the brain and cause a stroke. And so the protocols dictate what kind of treatment you're going to get. And so you have to really get to what I call the ER table with into an emergency room that is ready to take care of that stroke patient, because every minute piece of the brain dies and it does not come back.
Wow.
And,
that's so true.
Yes. And so time is of the essence. And you're really lucky that your son called the emergency room and she got treatment back in the day. But probably, and you're saying this 20 years ago, probably they're not, treatments 20 years ago, we've progressed on from there. And so the treatments happen, let me say, they have improved since then.
Advanced, no question about it.
Yes.
For the last since 2018, every 6 weeks I have to take her to the University of Virginia Charlottesville Medical Center, where they have the best epilepsy and the best brain surgeons here in the state. So every 6 weeks I transport her. Sometimes it's a day trip, sometimes it's a 3-day trip. Sometimes they keep her and monitor her for over 6 to 8 days. So that has been a process too since 2018. Just going to the University of Charlottesville, she's been Richmond, uh, EVMS. We've had to take her there. So it has been a journey. And on Thursday, which was my birthday of last week, we were scheduled to be at in McLean, Virginia, at a Georgetown Medical Clinic, and they were going to their headache clinic was going to do some study on her and some testing. So we're going to have to do. She was just unable to travel on last week because of just the dizziness and the headaches and the fragileness of her condition didn't cause her to be able to travel up to Northern Virginia. So we still have to do that in August.
Glenn, it's also good morning, Glenn, and happy
Good
belated
morning.
birthday to you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Glenn, having been and still is a caregiver, it's important also that caregivers get some help as well, because it can be very taxing on you as a caregiver, and 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 the need to remain patient is always there, although sometimes you get so tired and so bogged up that you kind of lose your patience. So what kind of care are you getting, because you need that care as well, being a caregiver for over 20 years?
That my friend, you hit the nail on the head. Uh, Man, it can be very tough. Leah, it can be very tough, and there's supposed to be some uh, groups out
Support
there
groups.
for support groups out there. Uh, I have not participated in any, but I just, my number one thing, I pray hard. I pray hard, I pray consistently, and I pray often. Uh, One of the unique things that have been my uh, uh, help and support is my prayer and my belief in God that has kept me. Because it is taxing. Let's not play with it or play the word game. It is taxing and it is hard. And you, as a human, there are moments that you get frustrated, but then you can't stay frustrated for long because you got to snap back into the position of being the caregiver. So but it can be tough. I have a moment every now and then. I'll just get with some friends and we'll just talk sports, talk politics, and that's a way of escape
Hmm.
for the brief
Mhm.
But you're
brief
not, but
opportunity
you're
that
not,
you have.
but you're not sought out any support groups to come in to assist you in any way in the care of your wife.
Well, no, that's something that we may have to do now. That's a good point. We've been able to, between my schedule and my son's schedule and days that my wife has been strong enough where, we try to make sure that she has everything that she needs before I have to leave the house. I make sure I've prepared her breakfast. I have her lunch prepared, and we put them in the Tupperware containers, and so she can do things for herself. Like she's mobile and can, on days that she feels well, go to microwave and go to refrigerator, go to microwave. So on some days my son is off work, days that he does not have to work, so he's here. That gives me a break to go and be comfortable at work and not be concerned about that she's going to be all right because he can call me and I can get back home. And let me say this, let me throw this in there. God is unique in what he does. The fact that I am an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur since I was 23 years old, I've been able to, fortunate in that sense, it has been all great, but I've been able to work for myself. That has enabled me to, if I need to, stop in the midst of what I'm doing, get back to the house, get her to the emergency room, or get her to an unscheduled physician appointment. I've been able to do that. That is definitely by the grace of God. And one other thing I want to throw in there for your listening audience is even in particular the young people, get proper insurance. That was Anthony Epps was our insurance agent when we purchased our home, and he also said, "I know you guys are a young couple, but get disability insurance. Now, we had no health issues when we got married. We had no health issues when our son was born. But he told her, he said, get disability insurance because you never know what may happen. That was a plus for us. We had that in place. So when my wife was no longer working in the initial part of her having the cerebral bleeds, we were able to fall back on those insurance coverages that we had. So I say again to reiterate to your listening audience, get proper insurance coverage. Get disability as well as life, and well as your medical insurance in place. Get some disability policies as well. You never know when you may need them.
Mm.
Hey, Glenn, I'm glad you brought that point up because I've talked about that, in my particular personal case, which I didn't do, and it really, put a financial burden on me. Not having, I had enough to cover the main basics, but some things you need to think, in advance, what could happen,
Absolutely.
and make sure you put that in your budget to cover things that might happen, because things can happen in an instance, you know, young or
And
older.
it's right. In
Yeah,
the
I
blink of
want
an
to
eye,
get back to
your whole life.
your. Go ahead.
I'm done. I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to
Okay.
get back to your son because a lot of people, as far as children, when you talk about caregiving for older, for your parents or something like that, and most people around them are adults, except for maybe the grandkids. And the grandkids, it might be hard on them too, but they're looking at an older person. Now, in your case, it was your son is 5, and most time at that age they are more thinking about themselves, even though they're concerned about their parents. And I've met your son at different stages of his life, and he's turned out to be an amazing young man. And I can remember seeing you
Thank
out
you.
with him, and every event you would be in, you would be schooling him. And I just want to know how'd you balance that? All those years having to take care of your wife too, but making sure you were giving the proper time and coaching or advice to your son. Because
It,
it definitely shows in his manner now as a young adult.
again, again, God is to me. God is so amazing, and so He prepares us for everything that we're going to do if we are conscious and listening and focus on what's going on in our lives. Uh, I'm, I'm not gonna say we're not unfortunate. Fortunately, out of 6 boys, I'm the only one who never left Hampton Roads, and both of my parents. Now, let me say this to my brother's credit. They all came home when they lived in North Virginia to support, to be there for their parents. But I was the one that was here on a daily basis, and I was a
Yeah,
caretaker
you did
for
that for your
both of my
parents
parents.
too. Yeah,
Yeah, when my daddy died, my parents have been married 59 years. Josh was only 3 months old, but Josh was able to have a relationship with my mother, and when we had to put her in a nursing home, he would go come there on Sundays and wheel her down to the church as a young lad, but I think 6, 7, 8, 9. He would wheel her down to the church service that they had there at the nursing facility in their chapel, and he met a lot of the other older clients that were in those nursing homes and became friends with them, and they loved him to death as a little kid and would give him candy and stuff. So he's had to witness this. I don't know what God's going to do in his life, but he's had to witness me be a caretaker for my mom, as well as my wife, his mother. And I think God's, I don't know, we never know what God is going to do with us and on our journeys, but I think God must have something for him that's going to deal with people at a level that he will have to be compassionate because he's had to witness it from a child to his young adult age of now.
Glenn, it's interesting you
Yeah.
talk about, and it brings me back to the word you use, the journey. And we all have a journey that we're going from birth to the day we take our last breath or death. And with that, in that transition, because every day that we're alive, we are transitioning to the day that we leave here. And then so how our quality of life is plays out in the end is part of that transition. And so your son saw the transition of your grandmother to where she went into the nursing home, and as she got more mature or got older, and where she couldn't take care of herself or whatever, and you had to wheel her down to the chapel. She still stayed within her faith, and so that's an important piece. But within that transition, and as I go around and make this point clear, we all get into the medical side or the business side of healthcare. And you mentioned your insurance. Yes, everybody should really consider to have disability insurance and understand disability insurance, meaning the difference between short-term and long-term disabilities, because those are two distinct policy, and what kind of money you pay out and what kind of benefits you get. But one thing we didn't do is mention that there's long-term healthcare insurance that you need to consider even at a young age, because if you buy that long-term healthcare insurance, what is going to help you if you go into a nursing home, or it will pay those, you get a cheaper premium the earlier you buy it. And so that's one thing you need to look at when you talk to whoever is your financial advisor or whoever. Read up on long-term healthcare insurance. But the other piece of long-term healthcare insurance is there's a segment in a lot of the policies that these policies want to keep you out of the nursing home. So they also have a home health or will come in, pay for a nurse's aide or LPN or somebody to come into the home to keep you out of the hospital or out of the nursing home. And that is part of your long-term healthcare insurance piece policy. So you need to read up and educate yourself on how this stuff, and a lot of young folks say, okay, it's taken, I can't go down to the nail shop because I'm paying all these policies. But when something happens, the nail shop's not going to send you more money to help you care for your loved one. And then the other piece too, I'd like to get why I got the mic here, is when you have that stroke or that event, heart attack or whatever, and you are debilitated, most folks will go on disability, and disability will pay you a lifelong check that pays you at a few $100s short of your full retirement age, and you'll get that. But then the cost of the hospital, if you don't have insurance, what the government will try to do is put you to help you with those bills, is put you on Medicaid. And you have to understand, yes, people think it's Medicaid's paying all these bills or whatever, but they only pay 80% of that bill. And there's a secondary cost of when your grandmother had to go into the nursing home. If she owned a house, you have to declare all that, and the government, the state wants to come back, and they want at the point of death, they want that money that they paid into Medicaid. And so people don't have to understand that, yes, the government is coming to get that lifelong house because of that. They're coming to get all the death. And so
that is so true.
Yes.
Let me address some of the other things you said. You also stated that was so powerful. Not only in reference to insurance companies wanting you to provide someone to come into your home so that you don't necessarily have to go to a nursing facility. There's also funding out there for you, and I've researched. I didn't take advantage of it, but I did research. There's funding out there for you as a care giver, and where if you have to be home with your loved one for long hours, or that there's a funding source that will pay you to be there. Again, I didn't take advantage of that, but there is funding out there that will pay you if you're going to be the one that's there for the long hours and providing care. So that's something your listening audience could research as well.
You
That
know
there
that
are funding sources out there.
you are so correct. But the other piece that because now we're in the election season, people also understand that every cycle, I mean, every 2 years, uh, when it comes actually every year when it comes up for authorization, that funding sources is also on the cutting block because
Mm.
Congress wants to decrease and actually eliminate that funding source in rather than giving it to people to help people. That takes about and I could give more tax cuts to the billionaires and trillionaires. Also, if we look at what's out there for Medicare and Medicaid, every year there is a political party that wants to either decrease it, make it harder to get, and also have also come out to stated that they want to get rid of it. Now,
Wow.
yes, and it's been a stated policy with this one party, and people don't need to guess which party it is because if it's for the people, you know it is. This party is coming out after you, and it's what the Confederate GOP party, led by now the presumptive nominee. You can look at Mr. Trump in the manifesto that he has put forward, the 2025 project. Just read that, what they want to do to Medicare and Medicare.
Let me engage again with you guys. This is why this podcast, your show, is so important. Look at the information that you guys are providing right now. That's, I mean, from a political standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a health standpoint. Let me say to you guys right now, don't stop what you're doing. This is a powerful, important topic that we're discussing, and what you guys are doing right now to provide quality information to people who probably you're further educating me, and I've been in the game now for 20 some years, but I am being just re-energized just conversating with you guys right now in terms of how to go about to further be supportive of my wife while she's still going through. So I commend you, as I commended Slim uh, when I first came on. Thank you guys for inviting me, and please continue the awesome, powerful work that you guys are doing in providing information and having very important, necessary conversations about what's going on in our society. So I thank you guys, and I commend you guys highly in what you're doing in providing a platform for our people to discuss and just have dialogue.
Yeah, well, thank you,
Right.
Glenn. And as the Colonel brought up that piece and brought in the relationship between, how elections can have consequences, even in the health field. You're no stranger to politics. You have a direct line with Congressman Bobby Scott, and you've seen over the years. And as we talk about these different subjects, especially caregiving, Colonel is right. It's very important, that we make sure that we pay attention to who we put in office and think about, the
Absolutely.
things that are affecting your life right now. Yeah, as caregivers, you want to be involved in politics too, as far as being aware of who's out there and what they're saying they're going to do. It's easy with who the colonel was talking about because this candidate is just putting it right in your face and just saying exactly what he's going to do to you. So that's easy. But some other politicians, you have to really take your time and vet them, a little deeper to really find out where they are and where they stand. Sometimes you have to ask those questions. A lot of times, those questions concerning health, especially health, are not asked of candidates. It's a lot of other popular bullet points that you hear all the time. But if you have an interest, if you're a caregiver, you know, when you run across these candidates, that's where your focus should be. That's where your questions should be, whether they stand on
Absolutely.
healthcare and the programs that are set up right now to assist people. You know, because you have some people, as the colonel said, that want to cut everything, you know, and give it to the rich, you know, or the people that giving them the most money. Like, and I'll just end with this. If as we saw Trump bring all the people on stage with him the other night that have given $1 million, so you know what he's going to do if he gets in there for those people.
Right.
So in order to do something for those people, he's going to have to cut some other things, you know, that
Hmm.
our people get. So it's important that we pay attention to that. And Leah, if you want to go, I
Yeah.
have some more questions for him, but you know,
Yeah.
I'll let you get in there.
Thank you so very much, James. Glenn, I also want to mention for the audience out there as well, if your loved one had any military experience, the Veterans Association does provide some care. I know that since my husband has been in through the VA, I do have someone who comes in. They come in 5 days a week. Two ladies who come in the morning to help him with his breakfast and his lunch and to help him in other areas. And also the fact that with your insurance policies and pay close attention, those of us who are getting the senior insurance policies, to look at what is being offered, because in his latest policy that he has acquired, I'm able to get transportation to and from the doctor. So that has helped me somewhat, in as much as now I know that I have someone who's in here in the mornings with him to make sure that he can get his bath and he can have his food, and they do little things like wash his clothes for him, which is a help as a caretaker. It helps a lot,
No
and it
question.
also
No
with
question.
him to get the transportation now. Um, he's able to get to the VA hospital through the transportation provided from the insurance policies, whereby before I would have to leave work to go to get him to the VA or to get, and they still have to leave sometimes because you only get so many transportation offers from the insurance policy. But at least those avenues are out there as well. And you don't have to have had an extended stay in the military, which is a blessing as well, and they will help to provide those services for you. And it gives some help to the caretaker, knowing that I know before I would have to leave work and go home, make sure he had breakfast, make sure he had lunch, and get him to the doctor. So it's great to know that there are other services out there that provide some assistance to the caretaker as well.
No question. Let me address that, Leah. That's an excellent point. With that being said, psychologically, it also helps the individual who needs the care continue to feel that they can be somewhat independent. They don't want to
Yes.
be a burden to their loved ones. They want to be in a position where they can be somewhat still independent. That helps them psychologically, and it helps them still feel good about themselves, that there are things that they can do to help themselves. One of the unique things with Annette is a numbers person. She still can. Now there are days that my wife, she can't handle crowds, large crowds. She gets a little tired early, but my wife still loves to balance her own checkbook. She's on top of that. She feels good about herself. There are things that she still tries to take her to so that she can. It helps her to still feel independent, and that's what we want our loved ones who are going through a health crisis to still feel good about themselves, still recognize that they can do things for themselves, and that helps them.
And Glenn, you are so right on that, because when you've been active and you've been doing things on your own and taking care of your needs, it's hard for them to accept all of this help that we have to give to them. And so whatever level of
Absolutely.
independence that we can offer for them or help them to acquire is most important. And as you said, psychological, because they don't want to feel that you have to be there for them 24/7. They want to do as much for themselves as they can. And that's very important as
Absolutely.
well. And I'm glad you brought that up as well.
Yeah, and
But
that's so true, Leah. And I was going to say, you know, personally, I think the caregivers, some caregivers just dedicate their whole life to that, and that's good. It's a labor of love, but you have, for your sanity, you have to realize you have a life as well. So taking advantage of all these opportunities that are out there for you, you need to check into it. So every once in a while, you need to have a life too, or or you're going to need some kind of help.
Exactly.
Just maintaining your sanity, and you can't help them if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's important, to make sure that you uh, cut out a part of the time to have a life for yourself. And I think Leah, you as a very active person, and Glenn too, you need that. You need that to feed the energy that you have with inside you. And if you couldn't do that, I don't know how you could be as helpful to somebody else if you can't do something that that's in you, because you're all about community and helping people, and Glenn, you are too. So it's important. And I think people should, even before this happens, like shows like this, or just do your research. Even if you're sitting around and you're healthy, you know, start thinking about this. Keep it in a journal or write it down. This is what we need to be prepared for. And everybody needs to, if you have a big family, everybody needs to, you have that family meeting, say, this is what we need to be prepared for. It might be any one of us that might be in this situation. So we need to be prepared for something to happen. It's not always something, a medical, something like that. It could be an accident that incapacitates someone, as far as being paralyzed or something like that. So it's just all about being proactive to things, because when you see other people, shows like this make you aware what could happen, because normally we don't think about it. We just go about our days thinking that nothing's going to happen until it happens. So
Till it
James,
happens.
and also we need to mention for siblings. I know that when and I see it daily now in people that I know who've had to take care of their parents, and it always seems to end up that one sibling who has to do all the work. Uh, and it's important that the siblings also realize that sometimes, and I see it so often, where that one person is the one who's the caregiver for the mother, the father, or someone, and all the rest of the siblings may come by and may bring a meal, or they may come by and sit for a minute, or they may, but that one person who has that constant care of that loved one, it's important for the siblings to realize you need to step up to the plate as well. You have to step up to give them some assistance as well. And don't think that they are the only one, because they may have the person in their home, or they are just there 24/7 with the person in their home. It's important for the siblings to step up, because so often I see situations where that one individual has the full care and the siblings can just kind of stop by sporadically. You got to be
yeah,
more involved than that. You got to give a
yeah,
little more to that individual who has that person 24 hours a day.
yeah, that's right. And let me, since you mentioned that, Leah, let me shout out to my brother Ron Goodrich, who's watching. Hope he's still on here. He took care of our birth mother, where he was in Pennsylvania and she was in New York, and he made that trip just about every weekend or sometimes during the week, from Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to take care of her until he finally brought her to his house. And he took on that, and many other siblings do that. But you're so important. I mean, you're so right. Often we see 9 siblings in a family, and just one person is taking care of her. And,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, I can't imagine that, because I was raised as an only child, so I don't know the dynamics that might go on in there. But I've seen a lot of siblings that really share the responsibilities, and it makes it easier on everybody. When you
Yes.
share those responsibilities, even if you're having beef with your sisters or brothers, think about that person that needs your care.
Mhm.
They're the person that needs your care. Forget about the beefs or the disagreements you have. You don't have to be around it, but it really helps everybody when everybody can be involved.
Exactly.
You know,
That's what I was saying earlier. It takes a village to when there's some healthcare needs for a loved one, it really takes a village. And it reminds me of a story. I'm gonna give some props to my cousin, who's no longer with us. But and matter of fact, he'll be we'll be celebrating a year of his passing. Oscar Scott, Dr. Oscar Scott, was his father. My father were first cousins. You know, they grew up on Copper Circle in Douglas Park. And I'm sure y'all should remember Oscar. Actually, Norfolk grad, Norfolk State grad. Uh, but when before my brother Melvin moved back to the area, he would relieve me one Thursday. You know, I'm a newly married man and a son who was only 3 months old when my father died, and they were still living in their home together. But I had to start after the funeral. I had to start staying with my mother every night. So I was leaving a young son and a young marriage to stay with my mother every night after the nursing persons would leave. And my cousin Oscar, so you know, who's in heaven now, I just want to give him his props, would relieve me one night a week on a Thursday. And matter of fact, it was one night that he relieved me that she got sick and had to go in the hospital, and then we were no longer able to bring her back to her home. That's when we had to put her in a nursing home. He said, Glenn, your mother's not responding. So I said, call paramedics, and I would be there. So I just want to commend my cousin for his love for my family. And as we were engaged in the conversation about it takes family members, neighbors, it takes that village concept to step in and do the right thing. And that's a part of our race. A lot of times our heritage, we step in, we take care of one another, and that's a part of our,
You're right.
a lot of our DNA. So I
You're
commend you
so
guys on in bringing that topic up.
Glenn, you're so right with that, because I know when my mother uh, uh, became ill, and my sister was her primary caretaker, and I have to give props to her because she was right there with my mom 24/7. And those times when she would bring my mom to me to stay with me for a while, just to give her a break, you know. And then we ended up with my brother. You never know who you're going to have
Hmm.
to take care of, you know.
Sure.
Had to go get my brother from Baltimore and bring him back here. He lived in my home for a while, where we had to have people, had to pay people to come in to take care of him as well. So you never know at what stage and at what point you're going to have to be that caretaker, or bring that family member into your home, or be there for that family member. But the main thing is being there, you know, being there psychologically, being there physically, and just to be that support system for those individuals who are in need of care. And Glenn, because we don't know from this day to the next, we may be the next person who may be in need of that care.
That's right.
So it's that we step up to
That's
the
right.
plate when we
Being a
And
caretaker
and, and,
is,
and a lot of times, Leo,
wait, Glenn.
let me throw this in there. A lot of times we don't recognize, even though we're providing the care for the loved one that we're providing for, the test is on us. You know, and I know
Yes,
this is not a spiritual
but you're right.
conversation piece,
But you're
but
right.
we need to recognize that the test is on us. How will we stand up for the test that's in front of us? And a lot of times that's going to have an effect on our lives later on in life, and we need to understand that. I just want to throw that
That's
piece
true.
in there.
That's very true, Glenn.
while you're throwing that in there, you talked about one Karen, Leah, you're talking about you taking care of your brother, and Glenn taking care of your wife and other siblings and all that. But there are programs out there that are on the cutting board, what we call respite programs for those caregivers out there. They'll have somebody come in and stay with that person, with the patient, or I'll say the patient, for a week at a time, so that the caregiver can get a vacation or a time off to just decompensate and get their stuff together so they can recharge and then come back. And so when you're doing your research, look for those respite programs that are out there. so you can get a break.
That's
And
very
like you
true.
said, Glenn, you was talking about, I think your uncle or cousin or whatever, they came in and said, yeah, there's programs that, once a year you qualify for it, and they're out there. And so you just got to look them up. But I'll circle back what Leah was talking about, the military and with the VA. A lot of people don't understand. If you talk about extended period in military service, we usually use 180 days is when you qualify for VA benefits. 180 days and or one successful tour in with your contract, and having an honorable or general discharge. And those are the three gates that you have so you can get VA benefits. And VA benefits open up a plethora of benefits that, Leah, you're getting now. And a lot of people just don't understand that. Yes, we always look at VA as also, we always talk about trying to get that disability check. But when you look at the VA, like Leah, you said you're getting a couple nurses coming in, and all this is at no cost most of the time. And then you get your prescriptions done, or if you have to go in the hospital, you go in there to the hospital in VA. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's world-class medicine. And so those benefits are out there if we do our research and I say tap into those resources and get into the system. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Colonel, for that very important information, and I'm sure our audience will benefit from that. And before we go around and give our last comments, Colonel, you always been a proponent of education and making sure you can continue your education even if you are doing well in your job. And you had an event which had the whole family involved this weekend at Norfolk State University. Tell us about that.
Well, my son, who is a Norfolk State grad in computer science a couple years ago, he just finished his master's in actually in cybersecurity, and got his master's this weekend. And so we're proud of him.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations. As a matter of fact, he's Thomas the third, so he's the third in the generation of Chapmans there.
Yeah. And now, and while I'm on it, in 2 weeks, my daughter Tiffany gets her doctorate from the Army, from USU's, as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And so she's getting her doctorate. And then at the end of next month, my daughter gets her MBA, and she already has a doctorate in pharmacy, but she's getting a MBA, so she understands the healthcare side, the money side of healthcare. And so they all have done well academically and professionally. I just had to add that in there.
See, that's what happens when you talk about education in the family, and plus you lead by example, Colonel, with all the degrees you have, and I see your brother Michael has chimed in, because you grow up around these people, cousins and uncles and everything that have achieved. It can't do anything but wear off on you and let you realize how important education is. Even though, and Thomas was working, had a good job, but he still realized I need to elevate myself. And I guess his next step will be the doctorate program, in his field. So we're looking forward to that. So I want to thank everybody for watching, but we want to go ahead, Leah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
While we're giving out these accolades to these scholars, I would like to give accolades to my vice president, my daughter by another mother of the IC Norcom Alumni Association, Miss Samara Montgomery, who just received her doctorate. She's Dr. Samara Montgomery now, and I want to say
another example of continuing your education.
Received her doctorate as well this weekend.
Yeah, and Leah, after all these years, I understand you went to the prom, the IC Norcom prom.
I went to prom, and I had a fabulous time. The Norcom's prom was amazing. The students were wonderful. It was so nice to see the young girls dressed like princesses and little mermaids, and they're not like the housewives of Atlanta. All of the kids were immaculately dressed. They were on their best behavior, and we had a fantastic time at the prom. and my little NJROTC young lady who I wanted to win as prom queen. She won as prom queen, Miss Brimley, who will be going to Norfolk State. Miss Brimley Brinkley, who will be going to Norfolk State into the ROTC and has received an amazing, I think she received about $45,000 from Norfolk State to go, and so proud of her as well. So it was a great evening to be with the young people and to celebrate with them on this their junior senior prom for 2024.
Oh, what a great high school experience for the high schoolers. All of us can remember those prom days and your first date at the prom.
Yes,
But anyway,
yes.
thanks everybody for watching. And this time we go around and let the host and the guests give their last comments. I'll start with you, Leah. Oh,
Wait,
Glenn, you wanted to say something? Go ahead before we make the comment.
Yeah. Again, I just want to, in my closing comments, I just want to reiterate how great this conversation this morning was, and how interested and unique you guys have put together this very informative discussion and how you guys operate. I am excited about what you guys are doing. I can't say that enough. I am so pleased with what I've heard this morning and how this platform has been presented. Continue the great work that you guys are doing. I commend you. I love what you guys are doing. And it's not hard to understand because the three of you are tremendous leaders in your own right in our community. So thank you for allowing me to have a moment to just chat with you on this very important platform.
Well, thanks to Glenn. My hat just got tighter because my head just swelled up a little bit, but I'll be all right. But Glenn, we're going to have you back, especially when we get into the political season, especially here locally, because you are very well versed in that subject, especially locally. So we're going to have you back to talk about, some of those things that we're leading up to in November. So
we'd love to.
Okay, Leah.
Okay, Glenn, I'm just so thankful that you've come on this morning to share this information. This is valuable information that you have provided for us as well, because I know you had taken care of your wife for a time, but I didn't realize it was 20 years. And I know how it is because, like I said, I've been a caretaker on numerous times, but never to the extent that you have been. This is all information that will be beneficial to so many who are out there who are caretakers. And so I noticed that Nettie Ray came on, and she's my classmate and a veteran. And she says she knows because she's gone through everything that we've talked about. So it's important not only that you invite your friends to listen to this podcast on today and get them to share it as well, because you can be a benefit to someone who may be caring for someone who's at that level of frustration, because we do get there. We do get to that level of frustration. So it's good that we be able to share this so someone else can see that there are avenues open for them to provide care for their loved ones as well. And so, Glenn, I want to commend you for over 20 years. More than that, when you look back at your mom, of taking the time to care for someone that you love. And that's why God continues to bless you, because you've been a blessing to someone else. So I want to say thank you so much for all that you do. And I pray for your wife daily. And I wish your son all the love and success that he can have in his life. But once again, Glenn, I want to thank you for coming on to Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And remind your friends, if they missed it this morning, they can watch it again on YouTube. Go in and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's out there forever. So I want to thank you once again, Glenn, for coming on this morning and sharing this valuable information.
Thank you.
Yes, and Glenn, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and being part of this great discussion that we had this morning, and it impacts more people than we'll ever think. But I also like to give a plug for those who are out there in Electron lands. If you like what you're seeing, look at this at the bottom of the screen. There's a place down there, a email and section or how to give back to this organization, to Portsmouth Coffee Talk, because we exist by solely on donations from the public. And if you'd like for us to keep on giving or producing shows like this, please open your hearts and your checkbooks or your credit cards or whatever and support this this endeavor. And the last thing I'd like to give a plug to, we also talked about education. And I'd like to give a plug out to my nephew, Michael Chapman Jr., who is one of the foremost authorities on the East Coast up there in Boston area, who is the one of the heads of the Klingenstein Center for Independent School Leadership in the district right outside of Boston. He sees the matter, the mantle of higher education and educating the next young generation that's going to replace all of us. And so we have to give props out to our educators out there. That's all I have.
Okay, since you're doing a shout out, let me give a shout out to Professor Jamie Overton, my daughter, who's a college professor and teaching virtually while raising a 6-year-old, Zoe. She is another person that feels like education is she can't get enough of it. So she's continuing her education while she's a professor on the college level. And I want to say thank you, Glenn. I appreciate you sharing your very personal experience of the last 23 years with your wife. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody does that, but you do it because you love your wife and you want to make sure people that are watching are aware of the opportunities they might have in order to take care of their loved ones, and how they need to also take care of themselves. And I would tell people to think about, if you were in that position, what kind of care would you be looking for? So when you think that way, you probably will be in better position to care for somebody else, because you'll be wondering, or you'll be contemplating what you would want in a caregiver. So, and often we don't think that way. We don't think in the future that way. And we are all a prime example that things can happen. So you just need to be aware. And we appreciate you watching. And shout out to Michael Chapman. Shout out to Wilberta Carter, Nettie Ray, of course, Ron Goodrich, Black Pages, and Eric Perman. Thank you. You always there for us, brother. We appreciate it. And shout out to those people that were watching that didn't. Papia Angel Brown, Gail Robinson, and Yolanda Boyd Daughtry. We appreciate you. Yes. And I think we got everybody that let us know that they were watching, and those that are watching that didn't sign in, we appreciate you. And the ones that have been, please share this information, this very important information, because if it doesn't touch you, it touches someone you know. Thank you. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. Amen.